English translation, 330th contact Thursday, the 29th of August 2002, 14 o'clock, HRS.
You frightened me, my friend, when you briefly told me this morning about the recent attempt on your life. So now I'm eager to know the details of what happened. It was the 19th attempt to kill you.
Yes, it was number 19. But it was not so bad because everything went well. I could not call you to tell you because you were with Florena and Enjana at your daughter Semjase in the DAL-universe, as you told me last week. How is her condition and how are Asket and Nera?
They are all well, and I am to send you greetings and good wishes from them. But now let me know what has happened.
It might be easier if you check the control panel.
I will do that, but you know that we can only do limited checks.
Yes, I am aware of that. But still, it would probably be easier if you could retrieve the incident from the control disk, if it was even registered.
There will be a record at least of your swinging waves as well as those who were involved in the whole thing, like Silvano, Patrick, and Madeline, as you said. But there will be no record of the trigger-happy person, because they are only recorded in certain matters with the group members, but only in a limited way, and not for private purposes. You know that privacy must be respected. But now please tell us.
Good. Actually, it all started at 1410 HR's last Monday, the 26th of August, when I had just arrived at the end of the shed, because I wanted to go to the greenhouse to see Lutz. Just passing the entrance of the hall, a wine-red car from Schmidruti came and stopped at my place. On the driver's side, the window was open and the dark-clothed driver said in broken German, "Hi, Mr. Meyer. May I watch the center with my wife?" Next to him actually sat a woman, but unlike the man, she was wearing very light-colored clothing. And since nobody was present except Lutz and me, I said yes to the two, whereupon the man explained that he would park his car at the biotope at the front of the parking lot and then go and have a look at everything. Afterwards, the two drove away while I waited and thought that maybe I should be there to see the center after all. When after 10 minutes of waiting the two were still not back, I went to the front, but found them neither on the big nor on the small parking lot. And since Renate Koenig just came with her son and with a wheelbarrow full of bush boxes from Schmidruti to pile them up in the biotope as I had allowed her, I asked her if she had seen the wine-red car with the two occupants. She answered in the affirmative and explained that the car had turned around in Schmidruti and driven away up the hill. This seemed very strange to me, which is why I was so worried, while somehow a somewhat uncomfortable feeling rose up inside me and would not let go. In the evening, then, it was just 1845 HRS. I was standing in the garage parking lot with Silvano, absorbed in a conversation, when I saw a dark-clothed man at the rear sweeping place near the scree silo, who immediately disappeared when he saw that I had seen him. Silvano immediately ran to ask the guy what he wanted. But he had disappeared without a trace, so Silvano returned without having done anything. At 1855, HRS we both were at the porch of the entrance at the center and watched a magnificent big cross spider, which had made a big net and just wrapped a moth and then ate it. And when I looked over Silvano's shoulder backwards to the children's swing, there was again the dark-clothed man, who dived away again when he saw that I spotted him. Silvano and I rushed off immediately, but again the man had disappeared without a trace. My uneasy feeling from the afternoon, which was still inside me, continued to grow, and somehow I worried whether danger might threaten once again. At 20 o'clock, HRS Patrick appeared, with whom I had arranged to play chess, so we sat down at the kitchen table and started our game. It was exactly 20:55 HRS when I heard a noise behind the house that sounded as if a stone had been thrown at the Eternate wall. So I got up from my chair, said what it might have been, and left the kitchen to look. Going to the yard lamp, I looked to the left first, and when I was about half a meter away from the lamp, I looked towards the Russian caravan. At that moment, I saw a dark figure kneeling next to the chicken yard fence and in front of the caravan, and there was a strong cracking pain in my back, which made me wince and jump to the right side. At the same moment I saw a fire lance shooting out from the dark figure, and practically at the same time I heard a strange bang at the cheese house. Of course I immediately jumped behind the house wall into the kitchen door, where I almost collided with Silvano, who came running out and asked if I had been shot at, which I answered in the affirmative. He ran up and got his rifle while I got my pistol and loaded it through, after which we searched everything for the shooter, but we could not find anyone else in the dark. About 20 minutes later, Silvano searched the walls of the cheese house and the aluminium ladders hanging from them for a bullet hole, but found one in the plastic window. It obviously came from a bullet of caliber 6 millimeters. He and Freddy, who in the meantime had also joined the team, searched for a good half an hour, after which Freddy found part of a lead bullet. That's all, except maybe that we noticed that the hole in the target was just above my head height, so it was obviously my head that was being targeted for a ventilation hole. At least that's how I see it.
Which you are probably right about. Anyway, I will try to get to the bottom of this as far as I can, and of course I will inform you about it. Have you notified the police?
No, because I think that would be absurd, because first of all, it would only cause unnecessary trouble. I know that for sure. One is only suspected of a crime or the like oneself and treated as a criminal. I once experienced this when I was a witness, when one of my acquaintances was found to have committed suicide. I was interrogated for hours in Zurich, imprisoned and suspected that I had something to do with the death of the woman. That taught me never to report to the police again, no matter what happened. And if the police are already working in this discriminatory and questionable way, then it is extremely questionable whether, firstly, something could be cleared up by them, and secondly, this would be extremely stupid, because the story would be published in various newspapers. This, in turn, would perhaps have the even greater consequence that certain crackpots and sectarians could get the idea of blowing out my lifelight, which has already been attempted by sectarians, as you know. On the other hand, however, we would certainly be so overrun by sensationalists here in the center that we would hardly be able to defend ourselves against them. So first let some weed grow over the story, about 2 or 3 months. Then it is no longer interesting even for the sensationalists when I openly call what is happening, because by then, the sensation has long since faded and is over.
And once again, assassination attempt note all 19 on the 26th of August 2002, 2055 HRS.
On Monday, the 26th of August 2002, I returned to the center in the evening at about 1840 HRS from a civil defense exercise that I had to complete for a whole week. The military provided me with a military Ptaah all-terrain vehicle for this time, which I now parked on the parking lot near the garage and equipped with material for the next day. Still busy at the vehicle, Billy stepped to me and we got into conversation. He told me about a strange visit he had in the afternoon. A tall, strange couple had arrived at 1410 HRS in a wine-red car in front of the Remise building, greeted him with Mr. Meyer, and asked if they could visit the center. Billy told them that they could already look around, but that there was no one there to look after them. So they wanted to leave their car in the front parking lot near the biotope, but they never came back. Billy wondered about this and asked if anyone had seen the people in question. He received confirmation from Renate Koenig from Schmidruti that they had left the center and were driving up the road towards Sitzburg. We still talked about one thing and another, with my back towards the back of the rank, and saw how Billy suddenly looked over my shoulder at 1845 HRS. Then he said that he had just seen a dark-clothed man disappearing in the bend at the back of the scree silo, only visible for seconds. The quick disappearance of the man caused me to run down to the bend and take a look, but nowhere did I find any sign of a man. After a short search, I went back to Billy and we decided to pay more attention, because the behavior of the observed man seemed quite strange to us. 10 minutes later, it was just 1855 HRS. We both stood in front of the house and looked together at a big cross spider, which was just eating a moth, while the beautiful and big spider's web glittered in the evening sun. One more time I stood with my back to the garage when Billy looked over my shoulder again and shouted, "Now the guy has shown up again!" However, Billy had only briefly seen his upper body next to the somewhat removed children's swing, where apparently the same man had reappeared and also disappeared again immediately. Again I spurred off, together with Billy, and again we searched in vain for traces and the man. After a long and fruitless search, we decided to keep a very close eye on the surroundings. I did some more work, took a shower before I retired for meditation. When I returned to the kitchen at 2035 HRS, Billy and Patrick were playing a game of chess at the kitchen table. I watched them for a while and also made myself a coffee. It was 20:55 HRS when I went to the fridge to get some coffee cream, when Billy asked what was going on outside, and he hastily left the kitchen through the back exit, obviously startled by a noise, which I had not heard myself, because I was in the back room of the kitchen at that moment. Seconds later, a rifle shot rang out, which sounded like a small caliber weapon. Running to the kitchen door, I tore it open and almost collided with Billy, who was rushing back up the stairs into the kitchen. I hastily asked him, "Was it going to bang again?" He said, "Yes, the Russian trailer." So I went to my room to get my artillery and checked outside, while Billy went to get his gun too, and came out armed. 1 minute later, we searched the center area thoroughly for the cowardly assassin, armed with a lamp, pistol, and rifle. After half an hour of unsuccessful search, we stopped the action and retreated into the house where Patrick and Madeline were standing at the corner of the house looking for us because they had heard the shot. Billy told us that he had noticed a shadow in the light of the chicken yard lamp in front of the Russian caravan, and immediately moved to the side, and at the same moment saw a fire lance from a gun, and at the same time heard the sound of a shot. He probably owes his life to his quick reaction. Later, Freddie joined us, and together we searched outside for ballistic traces, such as a bullet casing, a bullet hole in the house wall or something, and a possible bullet. We also found the bullet hole, but not in the wall of the house, but in the plastic disc of the cheese house, in front of which Billy had stood at a distance of about 6 meters at the court lamp. Later, Freddie and I did indeed find the deformed projectile, which was clearly a small caliber bullet. This was now the 19th unsuccessful attempt on Billy's life, and I myself witnessed 6 of them directly. With gallows humor, Billy said that his former patron, King Hussein of Jordan, still had a number of assassinations on his life before he died of cancer, as he had been the subject of 32 assassinations. We can only hope that peace will return in the near future.
Silvano Lehmann, Switzerland. Once more again.
At the present time, at the beginning of the 3rd millennium, it is unfortunately still the case among Earth humans that various forces are looking for ways to destroy truth and real enlightenment with primitive means of violence, as was already the case in earlier and earliest times, and has apparently still not found an end at the present time. This is also what happened on Monday, the 26th of August 2002, when another assassination attempt was made in the long, more or less successful chain of violent suppression of truth and destruction of truth, namely by a hitherto unknown party attempting to extinguish the life of Billy Edward Albert Meyer. Fortunately, this assassination attempt failed thoroughly, not least also thanks to Billy's caution and ability to react quickly. But what had happened? On the Monday in question, I, Patrick Chenot, had an appointment with Billy at 8 HRS in the evening for a game of chess together in the center kitchen. Even as we greeted each other, it seemed to me that Billy was somehow worried about something, and when I asked him about it, he only gave me an evasive answer, so I put the matter aside and we could start playing chess. It was just when the hands of the 2 kitchen clocks slipped around 20:55 HRS. Billy and I were still sitting playing chess, and were alone in the kitchen with Silvano Lehmann. Suddenly, Billy started up and asked, "What is going on outside?" While at the same time he looked attentively but only briefly in the direction of the kitchen window, only to get up immediately and hurry to the back kitchen door, which leads out into the backyard. When I asked him what was going on, he replied briefly that he had only heard a noise, and then he disappeared through the door into the open air. Since I hadn't noticed anything in this regard and hadn't heard anything either, probably because I was concentrating on my chess game, I simply remained seated and looked out the kitchen window. Only a few seconds later, after Billy had left the kitchen, there was a half-loud bang outside, which sounded to me like a small-caliber rifle shot. Silvano, who had just come out of the kitchen back room and was standing only about a meter from the door, realized immediately what had happened, because he also heard the shot. He hurriedly pulled open the kitchen door and wanted to run outside in a flash to keep a lookout, but he couldn't do that because Billy immediately rushed up the stairs and appeared in the doorway, almost colliding with Silvano. When Silvano asked if that was a gunshot we heard, and if he had been shot again, Billy replied, quite out of breath, in the affirmative, and immediately added that he was going to get his pistol, while Silvano hurried into his room and came back with his gun. The three of us, additionally armed with a torch, left the kitchen and entered the backyard, where Billy showed us the spot where the shot had come from. He told us that after leaving the kitchen he saw a dark figure and its outline vis-à-vis the Russian caravan, in the shade next to the big fence that encloses the whole chicken enclosure, and immediately afterwards a lance of fire, the muzzle flash of a firearm, accompanied by a bang. When he saw the dark figure, he immediately backed away from the field of fire and ran back to the kitchen, where Silvano was about to leave. And the first sound he heard that lured him out of the kitchen, Billy went on to say, was most probably a stone that the dark figure had apparently thrown at the alternate wall on the north side of the house, probably in the evil hope that the noise it made would lure Billy out of the house, which proved to be the case, but fortunately without any serious consequences. After this brief description by Billy, Silvano, equipped with a rifle and a torch, immediately set out on the prowl and searched the nearer and wider surroundings of the center grounds for this vile fiend, while Billy and I stayed near the house, searching and hoping to recognize or see something. A few minutes later, Madeline Brugger joined us and asked what was going on, as she had also heard the shot from her room. Billy briefly explained the facts of what had happened, whereupon again a few minutes later a black car approached the center, parked in the upper center car park, from which Simone and Stephanie Rickauer got out, and we then joined them. Billy also let them in on what was happening. He added, however, that he had had a sinking feeling all day that something was wrong, because in the early evening he and Silvano twice within 10 minutes observed a suspicious-looking and suspiciously behaving man on the center grounds, who immediately made off after his discovery. After Billy's account, Silvano returned from his search and declared that he had not found or discovered anything or anyone, from which we concluded that the vile shooter and assassin had fled immediately after his shot, never to be seen again. So we went back to the scene and decided to look for the fired bullet, since it had probably hit somewhere after luckily missing Billy. After reconstructing the trajectory of the bullet, we searched the wall and window on the east side of the Chashusli, which stands behind the apartment building, and found what we were looking for relatively quickly. In the double-glazed window, we discovered a smooth bore of a small caliber bullet, which led into the firewood storage room, and in which at a later date, Silvano and Freddie, who also joined us, actually also found the projectile. Well, what is there to say about this 19th attempt on Billy's life? In my opinion, only this. After a relative calm of about 4 years, the last 2 assassinations took place in 1998. We were actually of the opinion that the attitude of Earth humans had changed for the better, to such an extent that the inglorious and primitive times of the vile assassinations were finally over, in which we were obviously a little mistaken. When will certain circles finally learn that the truth is also not to be eliminated by the most deceitful and malicious means, above all by violent means? Probably these dark elements will only gain the spark of realization when they have to realize that in the long run, they will fare much better if, instead of working against the truth, they work for it and with it.
Patrick Chenot, Switzerland.
You might be right about that in every respect.
That's what I think. Imagine the sensation if the newspaper said that on UFO, Billy or UFO Meyer was assassinated. Certain sectarians and evil enemies would start a howl of joy, while others, as long as the whole thing is still warm, would sensationally overrun us here in the center. But all group members and I can do without that. But let's talk about something else now, because I think that enough of the story is spoken. I have a question from a bulletin reader here. The so-called cosmic life energy, cosmic electromagnetic life energy, or simply cosmic electromagnetic vibrations, or cosmic electromagnetic energy, as another term is called in relation to cosmic life energy. What is meant by this and by electrosmog? And is it harmful or not harmful to humans, animals, and plants at all? I could answer the question regarding the cosmic electromagnetic energy of life myself, but I think it would be good if you would take a stand on this in connection with electrosmog and mobile phones, as mobile phones are called.
Electrosmog can in no way be associated with cosmic electromagnetic energy or with cosmic electromagnetic life energy, because in contrast to this, electrosmog is not invigorating for all life forms, but is very harmful, whereby the human being in particular is very susceptible to it, along with pets, wild animals, and plants. Electrosmog fields occur everywhere where electric lines run, or where electric apparatuses, plants, generators, or transformer stations, etc. are located. Also radio, television, and mobile phone transmitters, as well as similar receivers, that is to say, radio telephones, radio equipment, and mobile phones, or the so-called mobile phones, emit strong emissions of electrosmog, which is nothing else than low-energy electromagnetic fields, or low-energy electromagnetic oscillations. Effects of electrosmog on humans can be, for example, dizziness, consciousness disorders, headaches, brain warming, concentration disorders, allergies, blood diseases, rheumatism, nervous diseases, psychological damage, eating disorders as well as aggression, sleep disorders, forgetfulness, personality changes, depression, visual disorders, even cancer, etc., as the facts show. But this is usually as vehemently disputed elsewhere by the earthly experts and scientists as by the manufacturers of the products emitting electrosmog.
To your answer, I can add a small magazine article I received from Bruni. It comes from the magazine Medizin, but unfortunately there is no date available. So listen, the whole thing is quite interesting, and it also matches your explanation.
Mobile phone harms.
The electromagnetic radiation emitted by mobile phones could be more harmful to humans than previously thought. This is the conclusion of a cell culture study by the Finnish Radiation and Nuclear Safety Authority. The study found that mobile phone radiation caused thinning of the walls of blood vessel cells. If this effect, which was observed in the laboratory, also occurs in the human organism, it would disrupt the blood-brain barrier. Headaches, fatigue, and even Alzheimer-like diseases could be the result.
The electromagnetic radiation emitted by mobile phones could be more harmful to humans than previously thought. This is the conclusion of a cell culture study by the Finnish Radiation and Nuclear Safety Authority. The study found that mobile phone radiation caused thinning of the walls of blood vessel cells. If this effect, which was observed in the laboratory, also occurs in the human organism, it would disrupt the blood-brain barrier. Headaches, fatigue, and even Alzheimer-like diseases could be the result.
Logical. But tell me, Ptaah, your father Svath told me when I was a boy that I should never have broken teeth rebuilt. He said that if a tooth is broken, the root of the tooth must be removed. Also, metal pins or other metal inserts should never be inserted into the teeth. Teeth whose nerve is killed should also be removed, etc., because dead teeth or remaining tooth roots would cause allergies and diseases in humans. Can you give me more details about this? And what about ceramic implants, if ceramic artificial teeth or ceramic pins are used? For my part, I have always followed Svath's recommendation and have done well.
My father's explanation was good advice, because in fact, tooth roots of broken teeth can be just as dangerous to humans as metal pins or other metal parts inserted into the teeth. The same applies to teeth whose nerve is killed. Remaining roots of broken or dentally reduced teeth, which no longer contain a living nerve, and thus also teeth in which the nerve is killed, as you call it, can be just as dangerous to human health as metal pins and other metal inserts in teeth. Ceramic pins, ceramic teeth, or generally metal implants and ceramic implants are also generally not compatible for humans. Tooth implants and tooth inlays, etc., should only be done with an absolutely harmless plastic, which is absolutely harmless in every respect with regard to health damage. Teeth and tooth roots that no longer have a living or active nerve cause all kinds of allergies and diseases, because each tooth root has many branched and filigree branches of various kinds that die, decay, and thereby produce and release dangerous toxins that can even have life-threatening effects. In minor cases, which is very common, ailments appear which can be extremely diverse, such as various allergies and eczema, but which under certain circumstances can be fatal over a longer period of time, as well as chronic diseases, ranging from obesity, anorexia, constipation or diarrhea, headaches, nausea and dizziness, to all kinds of pain which can manifest itself in all parts of the body. Further, other evils can also appear, such as rheumatism, hearing, vision, concentration and consciousness disorders, malignant blood count and personality changes, insomnia, forgetfulness, nervous diseases, ulcers, depression or aggression, anxiety, fatigue, chronic fatigue, digestive and walking disorders, as well as processes of poor wound healing and wound rot. Cancer can also be caused along with other nasty symptoms of the disease.
These are the same or similar things to electrosmog. So it's really the case that tooth roots of broken or otherwise reduced teeth, which have no living nerve, should be torn out, and no metal pins or other metal inlays should be inserted into the teeth. Can metal inlays on the teeth, for example made of gold, also be harmful?
This may very well be the possibility, but does not have to be the case. This depends solely on the immune system of the person concerned. With a good immunity and tolerability, there are no disadvantages, but with a damaged immune system and thus poor tolerability. However, this really only refers to external metallic tooth supports, but not to the fact that the metals are embedded in the tooth.
That should be obvious. Then another question. In the Czech Republic, a certain Ivo Benda works around, who, as I've been told, works around on the internet and in books with my photos and writings as well as with all my material in general, and also claims that he is the reincarnation of Ashtar Sharan and is in contact with you. But now I know that all these claims are based on charlatanry, because first of all, you have no contact with any other human being on Earth apart from me, and secondly, Ashtar Sharan's spirit form cannot be reincarnated in an Earth human, because this guy died a few years ago in the DAL-universe, and consequently his spirit form cannot return to our Dern universe in terms of rebirth.
The facts of all things are as you say. And I would like to state quite clearly that I am not in any way in contact with this man, and that all his claims in this regard are untrue. You know that you are our only contact person on Earth in every respect, both telepathically and physically or in any other respect. The man's claims regarding his alleged rebirth as Ashtar Sharan can only be classified as untrue. There is probably nothing more to be explained in this matter, except that we are well acquainted with the man's wiles, as you very much trivialize his machinations.
I have been using the term wangle for quite some time now because it's impossible to quote me in court for it. At least I suppose not. As it happened to me when I spoke my mind openly about a certain wangle. In Switzerland, unfortunately, it is forbidden to speak your mind openly and state the facts by name if you want to expose someone's unfair machinations, etc. If you do it anyway, then unfortunately there are tough laws in Switzerland that forbid this and punish you, so that you are muzzled and the truth cannot be publicly disseminated. This is called freedom, justice, and the rule of law. In this way, lies, fraud, crime, and swindling are rewarded by the legislation, the administration of justice, and thus by the courts and their jurisdiction, and also by the fact that, when really serious and most serious crimes as well as violent and capital crimes are committed, the guilty are handled and treated with kid gloves and sentenced to extremely short and inadequate prison terms, if at all, if they are not given a suspended sentence. The greater and more serious the criminal act or crime, and the higher the professional, financial, or social position of the perpetrator, the more lenient the judgment of certain courts will be, and the lower the sentences and penalties will be, the more inappropriate and completely inappropriate and scornful of justice. This is in stark contrast to real justice, which is very often trampled underfoot, thereby giving effect to the principle, the little ones are hanged and the big ones let go. So it also happens that if a person speaks the truth openly and honestly in public with those words that clearly state the facts of the case, he will be punished by law for this, because any liar, cheat, swindler, thief, murderer, charlatan, burglar, work-shy person, and criminal can be sued in court if one publicly exposes his real machinations with the correct descriptions of his character traits and his actions and behavior.
We have also noticed this fact, especially with regard to the so-called constitutional states. Misjudgments appear in such large numbers when innocent humans are sentenced to punishment, out of knowledge or ignorance or out of partiality of the courts or the alleged judges, while the guilty remain unmolested or are still being praised.
If you look at the jurisdiction today, the injustice is exactly the same as it was during the time of the Inquisition, or how a dictator like Saddam Hussein handled it. So I have no choice but to paraphrase the real truth with a trivial word, so to speak, if I do not want to expect further court weather. Is that what you want? Perhaps I will be summoned to court again for what I have just said, when a so-called lawyer feels attacked and affected, although I have said everything only in relation to those whom it actually concerns. But surely only those will come forward who act in the mentioned way, so then the principle applies. If it hits the dog, then he yaps. In this way, every plaintiff will give himself away.
With this you have spoken a word of truth. We have also noticed many times that on earth, justice is often not given to the honest and righteous, but to liars, cheats, criminals, swindlers, and other criminals. In particular, the real truth-tellers are frowned upon and hated by Earth humans because they openly and harshly state the truth, which does not fit into the concept of many a self-righteous person, as you yourself once said. A fact that is extremely regrettable and contributes a great deal to injustice, but also to the foul insult and unjust punishment of the truth-bearers. This has been the case with Earth humans since ancient times, and unfortunately it will remain so for a very long time. Only the truly honest, reverent, and worthy turn away from it and seek the way of true justice and true life. But now, dear friend, I have to get back to my tasks, and at 20 o'clock HRS we will be in touch again together for the correction work. Goodbye.